Lamb was a quiet man in his mid-30s, once a university student full of ambitions in the bustling city. Now he lived a modest life in a remote countryside town, where the streetlights cast a gentle glow and the streets became desolate after 9 o'clock. In his small house, Lamb sat with his wife and 10-year-old daughter, sipping tea that had already gone cold. The clock ticked slowly, striking 10. That night, as he was about to retire, a knock on the door broke the silence. Lamb, puzzled, glanced at his wife, Lion, who looked equally surprised and worried. Who would visit at this hour? A sense of unease stirred in Lamb as he furrowed his brows and opened the door. Standing there was Dung, an old friend from his school years. He froze for a moment, startled. Dung, his former classmate from high school, had unexpectedly appeared at his home late at night. Surprised and overwhelmed, Lamb stood silent for a while. It had been 15 years since they last met. After high school, they were accepted into different universities and occasionally saw each other. But after graduating, life pulled them in separate directions, and they lost touch completely. As Dung stepped into the room, her appearance took Lamb aback. The woman standing before him was a stark contrast to the Dung he remembered. Her worn-out coat, faded with time, and her deep, weary eyes betrayed the struggles she had endured. Her demeanor exuded resilience, but was weighed down by the burdens of life. The once radiant, confident beauty of his friend had been dulled by the passage of time and hardship. After a long pause, Dung finally spoke in a voice as soft as a breeze.
Lamb, you must be surprised to see me at this hour. I'm sorry for disturbing you, but I had no one else to turn to.
She hesitated briefly before continuing.
Can, our old classmate, told me that you had moved back here. He gave me your address this evening at 8 p.m. I left right away and have been searching for your house until now. I live in a nearby district. I came here to ask for your help. I don't know if you'd be willing.
Lian took her daughter to walk to the bedroom. Here, a pang of guilt tightened in Lamb's chest. Images of Dung as a bright, confident university student, the most beautiful girl in school, clashed vividly with the worn figure standing before him now. He sat silently, listening as she recounted her journey, the years of wandering, unstable jobs, and an unfulfilled marriage with a man who valued status over the promises of a lifetime together. She had hoped to find peace in marriage, but her husband divorced her in pursuit of career advancement. This was what Dung shared with Lamb about her ex-husband. The deeper intricacies of her story were unknown and incomprehensible to him. Lamb remained pensive, listening intently to Dung's tale of struggles. His heart ached. Before him sat a friend who had once shared carefree youth and dreams of traveling across the country to help those in need. Now her only wish was to find a simple job to sustain herself, a peaceful place to call home. Her modest aspirations struck a chord of sorrow in Lamb, for he too was living the very life he had once derided as dull and uninspiring. After a long silence, Dung lowered her gaze to the floor, her voice tinged with urgency.
Please help me. All I need is a stable place to stay, a job to earn an honest living. I don't ask for anything more.
Lamb felt as though a heavy stone had been placed on his chest. He glanced around the room, his eyes settling on the polished wooden furniture and the modern comforts of his home. This house, this life, they were the fruits of his efforts to provide for his small family. Yet, in the face of Dung's predicament, they now seemed to weigh him down with guilt and shame. He wanted to help his friend, but a quiet fear of his wife's reaction held him back. Leanne had always been wary of her husband's vibrant past. When their eyes met again, Dung looked at him with a faint glimmer of hope, while Lamb could only nod awkwardly, offering vague reassurances. He wasn't certain how much he could truly do for her. The clock struck midnight. The stillness of the late night enveloped the house. Dung rose to leave, not wanting to impose further. Lamb escorted her to the door, watching her disappear into the shadowy alleyway. He felt as if a part of his youth was fading into the darkness with her. When he returned inside, Lion was still sitting there, her eyes filled with a mixture of worry and reproach. She spoke softly but firmly.
You're always willing to help others, but what about your own family? Have you thought of me, of our daughter?
Tears welled up in her eyes. A deep wound seemed to open in Lamb's heart. He understood that his wife only wanted to protect their family. Yet, in that moment, he couldn't stop thinking about the past, the ideals he once pursued. He thought of Dung, a woman of resilience now holding onto a fragile hope. And he thought of himself, now resigned to an ordinary job, carefully budgeting each month to ensure his family's comfort. Gone were the dreams of his youth, the ambition to travel and help those in need. As the night wore on, Lamb sat quietly in the dark, his gaze fixed into the distance. In that stillness, the image of his younger self, full of passion and zeal, appeared vividly in his mind. A wave of regret and self-doubt washed over him. He couldn't help but wonder, had he changed so much that he no longer resembled the person he once was? And where had that person gone? That unanswered question lingered in his heart, leaving behind a vague sense of unease that stayed with him through the rest of the sleepless night. Vocabulary words with definitions and examples from the late night visitors. 1. Modest, simple, and humble in character or lifestyle. Example: Lamb lived a modest life in a remote countryside town. 2. Desolate, empty, deserted, or lifeless. Example: the streets became desolate after 9 o'clock. 3. Unease, a feeling of discomfort or worry. Example: a sense of unease stirred in Lamb as he opened the door. 4. Startled, surprised, or shocked by something unexpected. Example: Lamb froze for a moment, startled to see Dung at his door. 5. Resilience, the ability to recover from hardship or adversity. Example: Dung's demeanor exuded resilience despite her struggles. 6. Worn out, damaged, or tired from heavy use or effort. Example: Dung's worn-out coat reflected her difficult life. 7. Aspired, strongly desired, or hoped for something. Example: Dung had once aspired to find peace in marriage. 8. Burdens things that cause stress or difficulty. Example, life's burdens had dulled the radiance of Dung's youth. 9. Guilt, a feeling of responsibility or regret for a mistake or wrongdoing. Example, Lam felt a pang of guilt as he listened to Dung's story. 10. Fragile, easily broken or damaged, either physically or emotionally. Example, Dung clung to a fragile hope of starting a new life. 11. Impose to force something unwelcome on someone. Example, Dung rose to leave, not wanting to impose further on Lam's family. 12. Reproach, disapproval, or disappointment expressed towards someone. Example, Lion's eyes were filled with worry and reproach as she spoke. 13. Self-doubt, a lack of confidence in oneself or one's abilities. Example, Lam was filled with self-doubt as he reflected on his past. 14. Lingering, remaining, or staying in place longer than usual. Example, a vague sense of unease lingered in Lam's heart. 15. Youthful zeal, energetic enthusiasm, often associated with young people. Example, Lam thought of his youthful zeal and how much he had changed. Phrases with definitions and examples. 1. Cast a gentle glow to emit a soft and soothing light. Example, the streetlights cast a gentle glow over the empty town. 2. Broke the silence to interrupt a period of quietness. Example, a knock on the door broke the silence of the night. 3. A sense of unease, a feeling of discomfort or anxiety. Example, a sense of unease stirred in Lam as he glanced at his wife. 4. Took aback, surprised, or startled by something unexpected. Example, Lam was taken aback by Dung's sudden visit after so many years. 5. Struck a chord to evoke an emotional response or connection. Example, Dung's struggles struck a chord in Lam's heart. 6. Weighed down by, burdened, physically or emotionally, by something. Example, Dung's resilience was weighed down by the burdens of life. 7. A heavy stone on his chest, a metaphor for feeling burdened by guilt or sadness. Example, Lam felt as though a heavy stone had been placed on his chest. 8. A faint glimmer of hope, a very small and fragile sense of hope. Example, Dung looked at Lam with a faint glimmer of hope in her eyes. 9. Mixed emotions, conflicting feelings that are both positive and negative. Example, Lam felt mixed emotions about helping Dung while protecting his family. 10. Into the shadowy alleyway, into a dimly lit and mysterious area or path. Example, Lam watched Dung disappear into the shadowy alleyway. 11. Wave of regret, a sudden, overwhelming feeling of remorse. Example, a wave of regret swept over Lam as he reflected on Dung's struggles. 12. Fixed into the distance to stare at something far away while deep in thought. Example, Lam sat quietly, his gaze fixed into the distance. 13. Lingering in his heart, to remain in one's feelings or thoughts for a long time. Example, The unanswered question lingered in Lamb's heart all night. 14. Sleepless night, a night during which someone cannot sleep, often due to worry. Example: Lam spent a sleepless night thinking about Dong and his past. 15. Youthful zeal, energetic enthusiasm, often associated with youth. Example: Lamb's youthful zeal had faded into a life of routine and responsibility.